Hare Krishna, everyone. Dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Right here in the live studios in Hive, otherwise known as the Haven, which is Anglo-Saxon for Hive, in Kent, southeast England, just near the English Channel, right next to the English Channel. We're here on Gopiparanadhana Eve, I think you'd call it in the West, Gopiparanadhana Eve, doing the final, not the final, but the proof hearing of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we're doing that, 4 to 5 hours a day. So I'm hearing these wonderful things about Lord Chaitanya, and I bless, or hope rather, that all of you become absorbed in Lord Chaitanya's mercy. We're hoping to get this audiobook out of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which would be a big deal actually. It's a very big deal. And to record the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, including the purports, without a mistake, it's almost impossible. And when you have to record that many things, the voice and the pace and the volume, and to get it perfect is very difficult. We met a very nice devotee named Bland Madhi from London, and he's got his master's degree in sound engineering. I mean, what can I say? It's just one thing after another, and Lord Chaitanya is just sending things and devotees and to get this done. It must be important, but whenever we're going to do something very important, then Maya pushes back. So there's also different pushbacks that we've been going through. So please, let us hear the Brhad Bhagavatamrta together, because this is really special. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatamrta Stotram from the Krishna Lila Stava of Srila Sanatana Goswami. 5 verses glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam very beautifully. And it's the basis of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drik Prada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandodita Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostute. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Mad Mahadana Manistadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Saduta Dayin Atini Chochata Kada Hanamuncha Gadachin Mam Premna Rit Kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Gopakumar, in his latest leg of his journey in a real adventure, has been picked up in an airplane by the Vaikuntha Dutas, the same Vaikuntha Dutas who instructed him to come to the Brajdam here on the earth to fulfill his desires, to go to the spiritual world. And sure enough, he was hearing and chanting, and he became ecstatic, and kind of all of a sudden a spiritual airplane came and picked him up and put him in the airplane, and he went to an ecstatic trance, and he woke up out of the trance, and he was going at the speed of spiritual speed. You can imagine. And we're picking up the action in chapter 4, text 15 of the second part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Gopakumara is speaking. In their company, I traveled along the path to Vaikuntha, a path inconceivable, supremely beautiful, and distinct from everything in this world. Text 16 and 17. My eyes fell upon all those worlds, cosmic regions, and coverings of the universe I had visited before, and I felt ashamed. The residents and presiding rulers of those places were honoring me, faces upraised, palms joined above their heads. They vigorously cast flowers, parched rice, and other auspicious offerings upwards toward me. Commentary. Gopakumar had previously traveled to the abode of liberation by passing through the sphere of the sun, but the path of the present journey to Vaikuntha was even more exceptional. This was the path the pure devotees traverse when they leave this material world for the spiritual world. Unlike tiresome material roads, this path is supremely blissful, and it leads to the realm of Vaikuntha, a realm superior even to the abode of liberation. The same worlds Gopakumar had previously reached with great labor within the 14 planetary systems and beyond. He now easily passed through, one after another. He passed the planets encircled by the Loka mountain and entered the part of the universe where the sunlight cannot reach. Then he went again through each of the 8 covering shells of the universe. On his first trip to Mahakalapur, the abode of liberation, Gopakumar had known well that the regions through which he was passing were all creations of the material illusion. On the present journey, however, his realization was more advanced. He now understood that liberation itself is of little value, so he was ashamed even to look at the material attractions he had once found of interest. As he passed by all the planets, he had to tolerate the respectful greetings of Indra and the other rulers. Text 18. Praised by cries of victory and offered obeisances at every step, I moved on, and before my eyes I saw the abode of liberation and how trifling it was. And traveling upward from there, I came to the world of Lord Shiva. There I bowed down to Lord Shiva and Uma with great pleasure, and he made me feel blissful with a flood of gracious words filled with love and respect. And then I went on to that place whose garland of glories cannot be touched by words or by the mind, Vaikuntha. Text 20. The associates of the Lord told me, please wait here for a moment outside. We should take permission from our Lord before bringing you into his city. Commentary. The Vaikuntha Dutas asked Gopakumar to stay behind in the gateway while they went inside Vaikuntha to secure permission for his entrance. This is the standard etiquette for introducing someone to the supreme opulence of Vaikuntha. Specific permission should be obtained for him either from Lord Vaikuntha directly or from a proper deputized authority. Text 21. Stay calm and with your eyes illumined by devotion for the Lord, count the waves of the vast ocean of wonders that flow here, one after another, wonders you have never seen or heard of before. Commentary. Gopakumar's escorts could see he was feeling distress from being kept apart from his Lord. So they gave him this light-hearted advice to console him and keep his mind calm and his eyes busy with the work of counting the wonders that would pass before him. From the many amazing things he would see during his short wait in the Gopura of Vaikuntha, he would learn something about the unique glories of Lord Vaikuntha-nath, and that would strengthen his eagerness to have the Lord's darshan. He would learn about the methods of worshipping the Supreme Lord in awe and reverence. And moreover, the experience he would gain while waiting would teach him something about the many benefits of becoming a servant of Lord Narayana. Thus his short time in the gateway would be productive. Gopakumar's hosts were joking when they told him to count the wonderful things he would see, a task no easier than counting the waves in the ocean. How will my eyes have the power to do this? Gopakumar might ask. Anticipating this question, the Vaikuntha messengers told him that his eyes would be illumined by Bhagavad Bhakti. Text 22. Sri Gopakumar said, they went in, and I stood outside the pavilion of the entrance gate. I then beheld someone coming and entering that great city. He rode on a transcendental vehicle endowed with the opulence of hundreds of universes. Music and other entertainment filled him with delight. He resembled the Supreme Lord in luster and beauty. Commentary. The person Gopakumar saw entering on a Vaikuntha airplane was absorbed in ecstasy. He was surrounded by his own entourage, like the Supreme Lord, and by opulence greater than in hundreds of material universes. And he was dressed and ornamented just like the Lord, and his companions were chanting his praises as if he were the Lord. 24. I thought he was Sri Hari, and I cried out again and again, "O Lord, protect me," and bowed down to him. But he covered both his ears and gestured for me to stop. Commentary. This returning resident of Vaikuntha was shocked to hear himself addressed as the Lord of Vaikuntha. Covering his ears with his hands and sticking out his tongue, he waved another hand at Gopakumar to stop him. Text 25. I am a servant, he told me, a servant of the servants. And he moved on into the city. A short while later, another person came by, splendid, with even more power and opulence. 26. I looked at him and thought, surely this must be the Lord of the universe. He must have gone somewhere as a pastime, and now he is entering his own abode. Commentary. Gopakumar was awestruck and not thinking clearly. He should have known that because his escorts had gone inside to inform Lord Narayana of his arrival, the Lord must be in Vaikuntha, not returning from elsewhere. But perhaps Gopakumar's escorts were simply unaware that the Lord had gone out on a short excursion. Text 27. When the person saw me bowing down with gestures of reverence and offering him prayers, as I had honored the one before, he affectionately spoke to me the same way and entered the city. Commentary. Even more convinced that this second person was the Supreme Lord, Gopakumar offered him prayers with all sincerity. But just as the other returning Vaikunthavasi had done, this one told Gopakumar, I am just a servant of the Lord, and hurried inside the city. Text 28. Many others came, some alone, some in pairs, and at others together in larger groups, and all of them, each more splendid than the last, entered the city of the Lord. Text 29. Seeing them as they passed by, I was immersed, as before, in an ocean of awe. Again and again I bowed down and offered prayers, and each time, again, they stopped me with nectarian, affectionate words. Commentary. These Vaikuntha residents, whom Gopakumar saw entering the gateway last, were army commanders and other important authorities, returning late because they had been busy with various responsibilities outside. The residents who had first passed Gopakumar had been in a hurry, so intent on their business that their opulence had little chance to show. So the residents he now saw going by seemed more and more opulent, one after another. Gopakumar, submerged in an ocean of reverence, failed to reason that these different persons could not all be Lord Narayan. Each one of them was in fact supremely attractive. So even when Gopakumar finally realized that these were servants of God, not God himself, they still impressed him as such great personages that he spontaneously wanted to worship them. Text 30. Some of them carried various items for performing their service, and others simply hurried forward, intoxicated by the tastes of the nectar of devotion. Commentary. Some of these servants of Lord Narayana were carrying paraphernalia for his worship, chamara fans and other objects, apparently for their individual services. Others weren't carrying anything, but they were simply running in a frenzy of devotion, as if their only service was to be mad in love of God. In the following verses, Gopakumar elaborates on how these Vaikuntavasis were engaged in various kinds of service. Text 31. All had their minds and senses busily absorbed, each in his own service, and all were decorated with the myriad of pleasures from ecstatic worship of the Lord. 32. Offering obeisances, reciting prayers, and doing all sorts of wonderful things, those devotees, their every limb lending grace to their ornaments, looked fit to appear before their worshipable Lord. Text 33. They extolled the wonder of the great pastimes of the Lord, the husband of Lakshmi, as if his pastimes were those of some all-victorious king, and they were eager to see the Lord's lotus feet. Commentary. Gopakumar was amazed at how these persons conducted themselves. They sang and danced without inhibition, expressing the glories of their victorious Lord. They told one another how their Lord favored his responsible servants by providing suitable homes and fine food and drink. Indeed, because Lord Narayana is the husband of the goddess Lakshmi, it is only fitting that he display his sovereignty with such opulence, and that his servants share in it. Text 34. Some were with their families, some with an array of things, and others had left their families and things outside. Commentary. Some Vaikuntavasis were entering the Lord's kingdom with their children, wives, and servants. Some rode in their own vehicles and carried their own umbrellas, chamaras, and weapons. Others chose to keep their families and baggage outside the gate of Vaikuntha. Text 35. Some had absorbed all that they had into themselves, and like beggars without possessions, they came alone, immersed in the moods of devotional meditation. Commentary. The Vaikuntha devotees who preferred a more meditative mood of service hid within their own transcendental bodies the families and property Lord Narayana had awarded them. So the devotees arriving in Vaikuntha were full in all powers and showed the full range of devotional variegatedness in their pastimes of worshipping the Supreme Lord in perfect ecstasy. Text 36. Some assumed different forms at different times, with all kinds of ornaments, bodily features, and ways of acting, all exceedingly attractive. Commentary. The Vaikuntha devotees not only acted in many different ways, but also assumed many differing forms, including even those of animals, birds, and trees. Some devotees would show one form for some time and then change into another. Text 37. Some appeared as humans, some as monkeys, demigods, demons, or sages, and some bore the signs of persons initiated into the behavior of the Varnashram system. Commentary. The residents of Vaikuntha are in fact purely transcendental persons. The substance of their bodies is unalloyed, Satchidananda. So these residents never belong to the human or any other material species, nor to the limited designations of varnas and ashramas. Still, for the Supreme Lord's pleasure, they may assume or relinquish any form at any time. Some of them, therefore, appeared before Gopakumar like members of Vedic society, wearing the signs of particular ashrams and varnas. Some wore sacred threads like initiated brahmanas, indicating that they chanted mantras for worshipping the Lord. And they carried kusha grass and kamandalus in their hands, wore tulasi malas on their necks, and had tilak on their foreheads. Text 54. Some looked like Indra, Chandra, or other demigods. Some had 3 eyes, or 4 heads, or 4 arms, or 8, or 1,000 faces. Commentary. Some of the Vaikuntha residents looked like the king of heaven, Indra, with 1,000 eyes on their bodies, and thunderbolt weapons in their hands. Others appeared like the gods of the moon, sun, fire, and wind. These demigods, headed by Indra, are not actually incarnations of the Supreme Lord, like Shiva and Brahma, who are especially empowered guna avatars. If required for service to Lord Narayana, the Vaikuntha-vasis can assume the exact forms of ordinary demigods, but empowered incarnations and direct expansions of Narayana, such as Anantashesha, the Vaikuntha-vasis can only emulate to the extent of copying certain of their bodily features. Text 39. Later I shall explain to you the reason for this extreme variety of appearances. For those who enjoy the moods of devotion to Krishna, is there anything not beautiful? Commentary. In Vaikuntha, the liberation of Sarupya, having a form similar to that of the Supreme Lord, is available to everyone. We may reasonably expect that, therefore, that all the Vaikuntha residents should have 4 arms and look like Lord Narayana. Why did some of them look like humans, monkeys, and all sorts of other forms of life? Gopakumar later heard from Narada Muni the definitive philosophical explanation for this variety. And in the course of the present narration, Gopakumar will relate that to his own student. But even granting that there is a reason for varieties of bodies in Vaikuntha, why should Lord Narayana's devotees assume ugly bodies like those of monkeys? In response, it may be said that we know from common worldly experience that anyone who has intense attraction to something cannot help but see that thing as beautiful, no matter what it is. This is also true on the spiritual level. Otherwise, why would the Supreme Lord and his devotees be so attracted to persons like Hanuman and Jambavan? Text 40 and 41. The residents of Vaikuntha transcend everything material. For persons within the material creation, the manifold glories of those residents and of the Vaikuntha world and its master are beyond analogy and beyond the power of words to describe. Commentary. Normally, the varieties of life forms in any realm indicate a vast hierarchy of relative superiority and inferiority, as Gopakumar saw among the residents of heaven. Such a hierarchy might seem out of place in Vaikuntha, where everyone should be equal on the platform of Satchidananda. Gopakumar wants to explain carefully to his student the real situation, but is afraid of committing offenses by applying material examples to the transcendental reality of Vaikuntha. Therefore, he first gives a disclaimer. Comparisons to things of the known world may help neophytes begin to understand the spiritual world, but can never do full justice to that higher reality. Since the categories of spiritual existence are totally different from those of the material world, spiritually immature intelligence has no power to comprehend them directly. Text 42 and 43. Nevertheless, my dear Brahmana, you are a resident of the material world, and your intelligence is confined because you can see only matter. Therefore I say, it is like this, so that by material examples you might understand various things more easily. May Lord Hari forgive this offense. Commentary. An attempt to describe spiritual existence in material terms is, strictly speaking, inappropriate and impossible. Yet if a conditioned soul can be even a little attracted by words evoking some of the glories of Vaikuntha, and if he can be encouraged to take up the task of spiritual development, the impossible can indeed become possible. Any honest attempt to enlighten the conditioned soul with Vaikuntha consciousness is worthwhile and praiseworthy. Even though our thinking may now be covered by concepts of matter and conditioned life, pure Vaishnavas can guide us gradually to transcendental understanding. We know from ordinary experience what a king is. So if we can further appreciate the personality of Godhead as the Supreme King, we have begun to understand his glories. Text 44. Though there may seem to be hierarchies in Vaikuntha, its residents all enjoy equality among themselves. In this, there is no contradiction. Commentary. The residents of Vaikuntha are equal because all of them can do anything they want. That some of them appear greater than others is not contradictory, because all these devotees show their natural opulence and power in different degrees by their own free choice. Text 45. Absent among them are faults like envy, and their innate good qualities ever shine forth by the thousands. Commentary. The superficial appearance of superior and inferior classes among the residents of Vaikuntha cannot cause the dissatisfaction there, because the Vaikuntha Vasis are all faultless. They are never affected by jealousy, the inability to tolerate the superiority of others. They never quarrel and never disrespect anyone. Rather, they are eternally full in all good qualities, including friendship, humility, and respect. Material qualities may also be considered eternal, in the sense that material nature herself is eternal. But the qualities of the residents of Vaikuntha are not only eternal, nityaha, but also real, satyaha. They are not products of Maya. The qualities of the Vaikuntha Vasis are swabhavika, the natural, spontaneous expressions of spiritual personality. As Lord Brahma describes in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 3:15, 18, and 19, when the king of bees hums in a high pitch, singing the glories of the Lord, there is a temporary lull in the noise of the pigeon and the cuckoo, the crane and the chakravaka, the swan, the parrot, the partridge, and the peacock. Such transcendental birds stop their own singing simply to hear the glories of the Lord. Although flowering plants like the mandara, kunda, kurabaka, and utpala, and champaka, arna, and punaga, and nagakeshara, bakula, lily, and parijata are full of transcendental fragrance, they are still conscious of the austerities performed by Tulasi. For Tulasi is given special preference by the Lord, who garlands himself with tulsi leaves. Gopakumar's further description of his own experience of Vaikuntha will establish that the pigeons and other creatures mentioned by Brahma are all personal associates of Lord Narayana. Text 46. Superficially, those residents of Vaikuntha may appear like sense enjoyers of the material realm, but in fact, their feet are worshipped by liberated souls. Commentary. Because the devotees of Vaikuntha enjoy their senses in wonderful ways, living a life full of song and dance, one might judge them to be more better than the selfish materialists of the world of Maya. The truth is, however, that the feet of the Vaikuntha Vasis are worshipped by elevated souls who have transcended the limits of matter, given up the attractions of sense pleasure, and dedicated themselves fully to the service of the Supreme Lord. There is no valid reason to suspect that the devotees of Vaikuntha are ever addicted to the paltry enjoyment provided by material senses. In Srimad Bhagavatam 3:15, 17, and 20, Lord Brahma also points this out in his description of Vaikuntha. In the Vaikuntha planets, the inhabitants fly in their airplanes, accompanied by their wives, and eternally sing of the character and activities of the Lord, which are always devoid of all inauspicious qualities. While singing the glories of the Lord, they deride even the presence in the water of blossom. They deride even the presence in the water of blossoming Madhavi flowers, which are fragrant and laden with honey. In other words, even while enjoying wonderfully, the devotees in Vaikuntha are always absorbed in the ecstasy of worshipping the personality of Godhead. The Madhavi flower blooms during the spring, when the attraction of sense pleasures reaches its peak. Yet even though such attractions may stimulate the senses of the devotees, this does not at all distract them from their devotional service. Vaikuntha is full of devotees who seem never to do anything but bow down at the feet of Lord Hari. Although while traveling in their airplanes made of lapis lazuli, emerald, and gold, they are crowded by their consorts who have large hips and beautiful smiling faces, whose Vaikuntha residence cannot be stimulated to passion by such mirth and beautiful charms. Karmis, jnanis, and yogis cannot hope to obtain anything for sense gratification like what the devotees of Vaikuntha enjoy. All this enjoyment, however, never degrades the Vaikuntha devotees from the mode of pure goodness, because they are perfectly fixed in the loving service of Lord Narayana. Text 47. Those devotees have attained the absolute limit of changelessness, yet they playfully show all kinds of transformations while taking part in their Lord's pastimes. Commentary. In both types of the Supreme Lord's pastimes, those predominated by the mood of opulence and those predominated by sweetness, the devotees who take part pretend to undergo transformations just to create the varieties that give the Lord pleasure. In Vaikuntha, there are no forces of nature to impel anyone to do anything he doesn't want to. The only force impelling the devotees is pure love, which makes them act exclusively for the pleasure of Lord Narayana. Text 48. Thus, although equals, they manifest individual variety. In that place, everything is so, including the profusion of airplanes. Commentary. Because the personality of Godhead wants to enjoy varied pastimes, his devotees, who are all essentially equal on the platform of pure spiritual existence, assume different forms and positions in his service. Even the apparently inanimate things of Vaikuntha are of the same transcendental nature. Thus the airplanes, trees, houses, and so on are all perfect living beings, qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord and with all other living persons, and they appear in whatever forms the Lord requires for his pleasure. Text 49. Sometimes that place appears full of riches, like gold and jewels, and sometimes its atmosphere appears chalk white, like a thick condensation of moonlight. Commentary. Gold, jewels, and moonlight are among the greatest fascinations in the material world, yet they only dimly reflect the infinitely varied attractions of the Vaikuntha atmosphere. Text 50. Vaikuntha may be somehow understood only by its own spiritual influence and not others. Indeed, even the mind cannot grasp its form. Commentary. One can understand the Lord of Vaikuntha and know the various locations of his pastimes only when he reveals himself by his special potencies, such as karunya, mercy. Devotees favored by the Lord can use their spiritual intelligence to infer something about the nature of Vaikuntha by comparison with things they have seen, touched, and otherwise encountered in the material world. And devotees fully purified can perceive Vaikuntha directly. The external mind and senses, however, can never discern the spiritual existence. One therefore has no right to speak as an authority on that existence until one has been granted insight by the Lord's mercy potency. Text 51. Even by direct experience, no one can rightly understand Vaikuntha. No more than this can I accurately describe. Commentary. A conditioned soul may discover the transcendental world of Vaikuntha, but only if he sees that higher reality for himself. By hearing from someone who has seen Vaikuntha, one may gain only a glimmer of understanding. Nonetheless, when a devotee aspiring for the Lord's service hears the pure instructions of his self-realized spiritual master and faithfully practices the disciplines such a guru recommends, the devotee gradually becomes pure in heart. And when his faith sufficiently matures, he can see the spiritual world. Only by that direct perception does knowledge become perfect. Casual thinking, even from those who have seen the truth, is not enough. One must become a disciple of such an authority and accept the disciplines that lead to self-realization. And that brings us exactly to 8 o'clock. We'll stop here our reading at text 52. And now, if we have any reflections, I mean, these are very deep topics. The variegatedness of Vaikuntha and the moods of their residents. Okay, time for reflections and discussion. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Gopichandra Devidasi said, Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Gopichandra Devidasi.
Rati Manjari said, Jai Guru Maharaj.
Hare Bo. Glad to see that you're there.
Bhajvarabha said, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances or glories to Srila Prabhupada. The mood of awe and reverence. I'm correct to think this is not the preferred rasa of Krishna. It feels like awe and reverence is reserved for those who do not know Krishna very well. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, in a sense, yes. But in a sense, the Lord of Vaikuntha is also Krishna. But he is manifested the Vaikuntha worlds so that those who want that kind of prema, because this is also prema, there's nothing higher or lower, but it's different. And the familiarity that abounds in Goloka Vrindavan, which is above Vaikuntha, is so spontaneous that it doesn't fit, or rather Vaikuntha opulence doesn't fit. But you should understand also that all the Vaikuntha opulences are there in Goloka Vrindavan. Because Goloka Vrindavan is the source of all other worlds. Just like Krishna is the source of all other expansions of his. So he contains all of those opulences. But his expansions only show as much of the opulences as he needs or wants to in order to satisfy the devotees who want that rasa, who want that relationship, who want that taste of awe and reverence. So in one sense, if we analyze it, we can say that Goloka is higher and Vaikuntha is lower. But from a spiritual point of view, there is no higher or lower. It's just a matter of different degrees of intimacy. And there's an unlimited variety of souls, and they have unlimited desires to be with the Supreme Lord in different moods, and therefore all these varieties of environments and personalities are there in both Vaikuntha and in Goloka Vrindavan. We'll hear more about this as when Gopa Kumar actually goes into Vaikuntha and meets Lord Vishnu face to face.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
I was just wondering, after when you said about that the different souls have different varieties of desires to be with the Lord, if that is that coming from Krishna creating them, or it's actually
that's their own individual desires.
From Rati Manjari. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Tonight it was truly wondrous and wonderful to be able to hear about Vaikuntha in such detail. I feel so fortunate to hear all these things.
Yes, it is the greatest fortune to be able to hear all these things. And because we're with Prabhupada, and we've got Prabhupada's association, and the previous acharyas, and Lord Chaitanya's association, we can to some degree or another understand them. Whereas I remember when I used to go and distribute books in the airports in America in the early 70s, right? I would sometimes take out a book and open it up and read something far out like this. Well, not like this, but different things that were very incredible, extraordinary. And some of them would say, "What language is this?" I mean, they couldn't understand a word, and they thought it was some... there's this saying, "It's all Greek to me." It's an American saying, "It's all Greek to me," meaning it's a different language and they can't understand a word. So, and then another person, I'd come and I'd open up the same place and read the same thing, and they would say, "Oh my God, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Give me that book. How much is it?" Because just like Krishna is inconceivable, so are the souls inconceivable. But their inconceivability is minute, infinitesimal, whereas the Lord's inconceivability is infinite. That's the difference. So the variety of opulence that Gopakumar is seeing as he's waiting in the Gopura, waiting to go into Vaikuntha, the incredible, inconceivable opulence of those personality he's seeing is only an infinitesimal measure of the opulence of Vaikuntanath, Narayana. And this is the principle by which everything is going on. But the difference is in the material world, all the variety is a mirage, because the forms are all temporary. But there, the forms are all permanent. And the pleasure one derives from these various services are eternal and ever increasing. Therefore, you can't understand it from this material world. And don't feel bad if you can't understand it, because it's not possible to understand it from our position in three-dimensional time and space in this material world, modes of nature.
Brhad said, that's mind-blowing.
Well, that's what we're trying to do, blow your mind. No, I'm joking because, I've just been listening to the end of 1976 and beginning of 1977. I'm on beginning of 1977 now. And it was just before this that this campaign against our movement was going on by some of the parents of the devotees who were trying to take their sons and daughters out of the movement. And they hired these deprogrammers to try to stop them from, doing their spiritual activities. They did horrible things, forcing them to eat meat and to look at pornography, and all kinds of horrible things were going on. And their whole thing was that the parents were saying that these people are brainwashed. They're no longer like our children. I saw a news article the other day which was talking about grown children whose parents have succumbed to the conspiracy theory groups. There's groups now in the world that have these conspiracy theories that are just out of this world. They have no basis in reality, and therefore they seem inconceivable. But they're just taking it, and their children, who are now grown, responsible adults, they're saying, we've lost our parents. We can't even talk to them. All they talk about is Trump and, and how they're controlling us, and the vaccines have chips in them that they're putting into our bodies, and they're going to control us, and we're going to lose our freedom, and they're panicked. It's all in the mind. They're panicked. So Prabhupada joked and said, yes, we are washing their brains. They're trying to clean the brains from all of the filth that has been accumulated for generations and lifetimes of activity in the material world. Hare Krishna.
Krishnangi Mulder said, Maharaj, I'm reflecting on the right use of power and how material experiences of one's well-being usurped by another or controlled can be a stumbling block to embracing fully Krishna consciousness. Personally, that has been my experience. And hearing today of devotees' actions are fully propelled by love in relationship with Krishna was a relief to hear, and I'm feeling a shift in myself. Thank you.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Just as Chaitanya Charitamrita describes the difference between love and lust, and it's described to be like the difference between iron and gold. Both iron and gold are metals, but they're completely different quality, different value. So the opulence of the spiritual world and the opulence of the material world, they look the same. That's why Gopakumar is bewildered looking at them for the first time. But the quality is completely different. So all these things, when we hear them, they are meant to awaken our desire to go to the spiritual world. And some may be more interested or more desirous of going to Vaikuntha than Goloka Vrindavan. They have that taste in their souls. But notice, when Gopakumar was traveling, all the different personalities who had seen him on his journey, they all were worshipping him. And we'll see, even the Vaikuntha Dutas who preached to him and then brought him on the airplane, They're all offering him all these opulences. And he's not interested. Because he's thinking, if I get a Vaikuntha body, then I won't be able to be humbly serve the Vaishnavas. Like that. So like this, when we hear all these things and put all the pieces together eventually, we'll be able to understand, see the picture of the difference between the spiritual world and the material world, and the differences, the varieties in the spiritual world. Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada said, these daily readings have taken me from the garbage yard to the spiritual world. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Congratulations, Praja. So thank you very much. It's been a transcendental pleasure, as always. And we're just getting started. This Brhad Bhagavatamrta is really amazing. We're only in the 4th chapter. There's 7 chapters in this part. And we're only still in the beginning of the 4th chapter. Shri Brhad Bhagavatamrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktabinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. So we'll see you tomorrow night. Well, let's see. Tomorrow is Gaur Purnima. Yes, we'll see you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, same subject matter. We're becoming eligible, spiritually educated to be able to receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Try to understand this. Remember, the teachings of this book were coming from Sanatana Goswami direct from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. One more?
Yeah, from Rajaluka, she said, Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances or glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for today's reading. Could you please share something about your meditation about this auspicious appearance day of Lord Chaitanya? Thank you.
Sorry, Brajaloka, it's already 5 seconds until I have to stop. Hare Krishna. It's too big a subject to talk about now. But I do want to thank you for our new Vaikuntha residents, the butterflies that you sent. I don't know if you noticed, but the garlands and the butterflies, now we have a nice cloth to cover the altar at night when we sleep, and it's very nice. We thank you so much. And we'll talk about Lord Chaitanya another time. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Gemelda said, thank you, Maharaj. I'm feeling encouraged and supported. And Rati Manjari said, Haribol.
Haribo, Haribo.
And happy Guru Purnima, everyone.
And to you too. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.